away from her, you bitch!
So today we're going to be talking about the Alien Quadrilogy. That's 4 movies with Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley. That's probably the best way to define this part of the franchise. So this is Alien from 1979, Aliens from 1986, Alien 3 from 92, and Alien Resurrection from 97.
So, obviously, yesterday I talked about the Alien movies and the Predator movies as part of the franchise, where it all fits. So this is really kind of the actual reviews now and the retrospectives. I've got Core.
Yes.
So, for this one, we're going to talk about the Alien Quadrilogy. Those are the 4 movies with Sigourney Weaver as Ripley. So we're not talking about the other ones, the spin-offs. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the Predator movies, and then we're going to talk about the AVP, the 2 AVP movies, and after that we're going to talk about Prometheus and Alien Covenant. So this one we're talking about the Alien Quadrilogy. So what's your kind of thoughts overall initially, just to kind of kick this off, about those movies? Anything that instantly kind of you would think?
I mean, for a time that was like the the thing. I even remember like the Alien Quadrilogy like box set coming out, and that was like kind of the complete thing.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I think that's probably the best way to view it, because a lot of the stuff that's come like after that or to the side of that has not been that good. I mean, the AVP films, meh.
Yeah.
Like Prometheus, okay. Fucking Alien Covenant, big pile of wank.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. I mean, like Prometheus, I can sort of see where they were coming from with it. And I liked a lot of visuals and stuff. To me, ideas were quite good. The execution wasn't great, but we'll talk about that later.
Mm.
You're talking by contrast, aren't you? There, the Alien movie.
Yeah, like I say, I mean, you can connect them to the Predator films, but in some ways, I mean, you can definitely very easily get rid of Alien Resurrection, but I think the Quadrilogy is probably the best way of looking at the Alien films. But yeah, that's about all I've got to say, really.
Yeah. I mean, I always think of it, especially with Alien Resurrection, like how did you go from there, Alien in 1979, to there, where you've made them into a kind of slapstick kind of comedy character, still creepy and scary in a way, but you've really lost the magic at that point, which was a bit of a shame to see the franchise kind of go in that direction. But it's still a good film. I mean, as far as an action sci-fi film goes, it was pretty good. But by contrast, you've got that first film, Alien, in 1979. Obviously, Ridley Scott directed that. Pretty much a masterpiece on like so many levels. Whether it's the technical stuff, the cinematography, and all that. I don't want to kind of sound too elitist about that, but the designs, obviously, H.R. Geiger came up with were just mental. The music score, all that stuff. Obviously, the actors as well were memorable. Every one of them, and just the concept of it and the way it was kind of done was just. I don't know. It just kind of hit so many levels of creepy as hell. So
did it do that well when it was first released, or was it one of those films that kind of?
It did very well. Yeah, it was. I think it was one of those for 20th Century Fox where, off the back of Star Wars, because they wanted to do more sort of sci-fi stuff, I don't think they knew what to do in terms of merchandising. So they kind of thought, well, this is what we do with Star Wars, this is what we'll do with Alien. And they actually made like action figures. Some of them actually got released, some of them didn't. They were just kind of prototypes later on, like many, many years later. Funko, I think, did a line of those figures.
I was going to say, I do quite clearly remember the Aliens toys, but I think it was more like Aliens.
Yeah,
Because
those.
she had all the colonial marines and the different types of alien and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Didn't they recently release the fake Kenner stuff where it's in the style of the old Kenner toys?
yeah, that's what I mean. They kind of embellished on them and designed their own for this new line. This was about 10 years ago, but they did actually release the figures based on the molds of those original ones that didn't get a release. They were designed like the Star Wars figures, like the 10 centimeter ones. So let's say from a merchandising point of view, it kind of had this fan base, but I don't know if with it being a horror, didn't have as broad, it wasn't as marketable as Star Wars was from a toyetic point of view or whatever. Its fan base was there. Then obviously 7 years later, 1986, you had Aliens, and James Cameron was doing quite well at that point. He'd done the Terminator. He'd got some good ideas for other movies that he was working on, and he directed Aliens. And this was a different direction for the franchise. It was more action driven in a lot of ways.
I was thinking it was one of those. I mean, then again, even in Aliens, Ripley is surprisingly kind of she's not like a horror movie kind of slasher heroine, screaming a lot and running around.
Yeah. She's one of those that a lot of people credit, especially when you get a lot of woke stuff where people talk about female protagonists and so on, and making out that Captain Marvel is the first ever strong female lead in a movie. It's past the sick bag. But people,
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. Because a lot of people got really pissed off at James Cameron because he came out and said no, we're doing strong female characters long before this shit. What the fuck even is this? This is not a strong female character. This is just a pretty boring character with no It was oh, how can you say that and all that kind of stuff? And it's okay, if you actually watch the films, he's got a fucking good point. You're not stripping away any part of the character or making them any less relatable or people, but they're also badass along with that kind of character. Not just the character is their badass. And
well, she was kind of like John McClane kind of thing in that he's an everyman. She was, I don't know if that's the right equivalent, is every woman, but she was just like a normal person, truckers in space kind of thing, who's put through this and just happens to be the last survivor in that initial film. And her being a woman was kind of crucial, especially in Aliens, because you've got a whole storyline that you cannot put a man in that role in that film and have the same dynamic that she has, the same story arc. It would be very different. I mean, it can still work in its own way, but the way this worked, what's so magical about it was with Aliens, if you're watching the director's cut anyway, she's lost her daughter because she's been in hypersleep for so long. She's outlived a daughter who died of old age while she slept. So she's got all that going on as well as post-trauma stress. She finds out that on the planet LV-426, there are families there that have been put in harm's way, partly because of what she did. Survivor's guilt, I suppose, not anything she did wrong. So there will be children there that are going to have to die because of the aliens. And so she kind of feels this need to do something to help out. And there she finds a little girl who's lost her parents. So she has this maternal bond with her and protecting her. Doesn't really work in the same way. I mean, you could have a man who's lost a daughter, but then you've got the whole thing with the alien queen. So the alien queen kind of mirrors her because that's got the maternal instinct for its offspring, the aliens. And you've got that scene where a few scenes where they face off against each other. And it's not just using brute force, which you would generally see in a male role as being a big part of it. This is more overcoming the fragility of being a woman, somebody who can't physically protect themselves in the same way a man can. So all that kind of exposure being very vulnerable, yet still being the hero and not running away from it, not being afraid, and her looking after the child. At the end of the film where she steps out in the load lifter, I wouldn't want to do that.
Get away from her, you buff.
Yeah. So obviously there's, like I say, that's
certainly. If you go back to the first film and you approach it in a vacuum, without the knowledge you have now, Ripley's the protagonist and stuff. When they talk about guys are going to be freaked out by this strong female character, it's nobody would have seen that Ripley was going to be the hero, especially in the way she was. When Dallas dies, it's well, shit, the captain's dead. That doesn't compute. What the hell? This is out of left field.
Yeah, exactly. So something that wasn't a big deal back then and isn't really today in the minds of most normal people, but obviously it becomes those things, it becomes an issue. So yeah, Aliens, obviously, like you said, had a toy line later on into the 90s, but that was based on a comic book that was also supposed to be a cartoon series. So the figures
It's always stuck in my mind because I thought a lot of the toys and stuff were pretty cool, but I could never afford that shit.
Yeah, I had a few of them. I had the Alien Queen, and there's all sorts of ones. There's the Queen face hugger, there's a giant face hugger. There's a gorilla alien and a snake alien. Some pretty cool.
So then they brought out mini books with them as well to explain what was going on.
Yeah, they did.
On the back of the package or in with the packaging, I can't remember.
Yeah, that was it. But then a few years later, they kind of messed it up because Alien 3. I like it on a lot of levels, but it is very nihilistic, and I could live without it because it undoes a lot of the ending of Aliens by killing off the surviving characters, and it's a very well directed film. David Fincher is a very good film director, and I realised it was one of his first films, maybe his first film.
Yeah, I'd still put it as one of the. You could just stop after Aliens. But I would suggest no, go see Alien 3 as well. It is part of the same on-running story.
Yeah, I mean, you could even say, for argument's sake, that Alien 3 is Ripley's nightmare from hypersleep or something. There's all sorts of ways you can look at it. But it wasn't very well received, and I'll get into extended versions of these films, but then you had Alien Resurrection in 97. So Alien 3 came in 92, Alien Resurrection 5 years later in 97. And again, like I said, it was a bit more slapstick, a bit more comedy driven.
I mean, honestly, I think it's amazing that film turned out as coherent as it did, given all the rewrites and the changes of direction and changes of director. It's it's amazing this film is even watchable.
Yeah.
As it is, it's I like it for what it is, but it is a film that has fucking problems.
Yeah, exactly.
It does not surprise me this is not the direction the films went going forward. They haven't really continued the Alien Resurrection kind of storyline.
Yeah, and it came out around the same time as Starship Troopers as well, and I think that was the better film, and the two were quite similar in a lot of ways as well, because Starship Troopers has got that kind of Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop director, sense of humour to it. Whereas it worked in Starship Troopers, doesn't really work in the Alien franchise. It's entertaining though.
It is also kind of something that's come semi-recently. Is you've got the kind of audio book of the originally proposed Alien 3 that didn't get made.
I got the graphic novel of that. In fact, I've got it somewhere behind me.
Yeah, is it a graphic novel as well? I know I got it as an audio book.
Yeah, they did both. It was the I forget which sci-fi writer it was now, but it was it William Gibson?
Yes, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was a very different direction that they'd gone in. It kind of focused more on Newt and Hicks from memory.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that I would say, like, if you're like watching your way through, like, don't feel you have to hunt this down. Like, oh, is this the best? But it's like it's a different version. It's very interesting from the perspective of like an alien fantasy, like what could have been. But at the same time, I won't say, oh, it's something you've definitely got to seek out, and it's something you've definitely got to.
Yeah, exactly. So over the years, we've had different versions of these as well. So we had the video tapes, obviously, originally back in the 80s and 90s. I remember my mother showed me the first two films when those were the only two that were out. When I was about 10, so this would have been like 91, and then a year later, Alien 3 came out. But then there were laser discs, but that kind of went way beyond like what me and you had. But there were the DVDs that came out in the year 2000 in the UK, and they had some interesting features on them. But it wasn't until 2003, I think it was, that we got the director's cuts of all of the films on DVD. I think Aliens was the special edition originally in 2000, but in 2003 we got the director's cuts of all of them. So we got to see a lot of extra stuff in Alien that we'd only seen as like extra cut, like deleted scenes, like on as a side, extra feature on a disc. This was integrated back into the movie, so there's some key bits there where she finds the alien cocoon at the end. Aliens.
Yeah, Alien is a bit of a difficult one to include some of the stuff because there are like pretty famous like cut scenes in that don't really work with the mythology of the rest of it. Like when you see like the crew like turning into eggs and stuff.
Yeah, we've not
It
seen
was
that.
like part of the life cycle that kind of got dropped.
Yeah, it's been kind of discussed in other like media and that, but in terms of films, it's never been reintegrated in any of the other films. Aliens had like whole loads of stuff. That was that a VHS release did the special edition. That was one. That was the first director's cut I ever saw. So the concept of an extended cut. That was the first time I saw something. It blew me away because I was like 11 or something when I saw that. Alien 3, massive difference if you watch the extended version of that. Was it the assembly cut? I think it's marketed as. Entire sequences kind of re-edited and reworked and different ideas. The alien doesn't come out of a dog in that one; it comes out of an ox. So lots of big changes there.
Yeah, isn't that the that release, the Alien Quadrilogy that I was talking about, where they all came out on like
Yeah,
all four films in one box set?
yeah. It was called a quadrilogy set. Was that one?
Like I say, certainly, I think that was one of my favourite releases because I kind of upgraded to. I think it was the next big release, like the Alien Legacy, where it had like all the Alien stuff and it had all the Predator stuff and it had like the AVP stuff as well. And it's like I could have lived without the AVP stuff. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, Alien Resurrection had an extended cut as well, but it was nothing much noteworthy in there.
Mm.
So it had a Blu-ray release over time, and to date we've only got Alien in 4K. Hopefully, we're going to get the others at some point, but I'm not holding my breath. I understand that's not anywhere due anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be surprised if they never do them, but you know, you can never tell, can you?
Yeah, I think James Cameron needs to sort of do a bit of work and authorize it for Aliens. And we haven't even had The Abyss or True Lies on Blu-ray in HD yet. So there's been some talk, but we'll see. So I think we have to cut it short anyway. Any last thoughts on the Alien movies?
No.
Yeah. So tomorrow we're going to talk about the Predator movies, the standalone Predator movies. There's 4 of them as well, for better or for worse. Cinema ones, anyway. That is. So obviously there's crossover. We'll get into that when we talk about Predator, because those are the ones that, or Predator 2 anyway, was the first one that really kind of showed that these movie universes were connected anyway. You didn't see anything in the Alien quadrilogy. Obviously the Predator movies came out after Alien and Aliens, but there wasn't anything in Alien 3 and Resurrection, I think. That I don't remember anything that mentioned Predators. It was the Predator movies.
Yes.
Called back to that. So yeah, right, we'll cut it short there, and we'll come back tomorrow, and we'll talk about Predator 1, 2, the 2010 film, and then, God, do we have to talk about the 2018 one? Right.
I mean, I don't think our opinion has changed at all from the last time we talked about it. It's a bag of shite.
Yeah, I've got a few things, but yeah, right. We'll cut it short there anyway, right? Thank you, everyone, for watching, all three of you, and we'll see you tomorrow night for the Predator review.
So that was our Alien Quadrilogy discussion video. Come back tomorrow, we're going to be discussing this guy, the Predator. We're going to talk about the franchise, the 4 standalone movies that had a cinema release. We're going to talk about the things we liked, the things we didn't like, the high points, the low points. There's going to be blood, sweat, tears, and jizz, thanks to the Topher. There's also going to be plenty of Buff and Topher references in there as well for good measure. Tomorrow, Brand X Reviews, continuing our 10th annual Halloween special. Thank you very much.
Shade. 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 Shade.